Hello, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what part of the world you're joining us from. My name is Brenda Unu, and I'm coming to you live from Lagos traffic. Today is one of those days. Yes, hi, Gripe by Grace. Welcome. Hi, Okwe. Welcome. Glad to have you join us today. Hi, Fiki. So good to see you. Welcome, everyone. If you're in Lagos, how is the traffic treating you? I mean, Lekki is on lockdown. I have literally been on the road for the past 4 hours in what is supposed to be a 15 to 30-minute journey. Well, it is what it is, but we continue. Right? Great location. Well, thank you so much for joining, everyone. So nice to have you. While we wait for our guests, today we're going to be talking about self-awareness. And what is it about self-awareness, and why are we having this conversation? Like I said, it's the first step to self-development, right? There's so much talk about self-development. What are you doing with yourself? How are you getting, how are you just improving? Because basically, if you do not improve, if you do not learn, you do not grow, you die. So self-development is about self-improvement, right? And self-awareness is the first step to that. So today we'll be having a very amazing guest join us live. Let me give me 1 second to find her. Oh, there she is. She's just joined. I need to also do something very briefly. Give me a second, please. Okay, I'm back. Hi, our guest has joined us, and because I was busy, yes, our screen is back. Okay, I had to turn on Do Not Disturb. I forgot earlier, so that the calls don't come in and distract from our conversation. So welcome, Star Life Center. That is our guest for today. Let me know. Okay, I've seen your request. Hopefully we can get in. Let's calm down. 3, 2, 1. Is she in here? Oh, there she is. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Twinnie.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, perfect. How are you?
I'm fine. And
I see
Lagos
you
is
on the road.
Lagos is Lagosing me
Oh,
today.
oh my goodness.
so
It
so
makes me so good.
so apparently the whole rain, it has been raining all day. It rained like maybe from
Oh,
morning to like 1 or 2,
mm,
and then the
you in
entire
here
Lagos
as well.
came out. So the entire Lagos came out at that two
Yeah, at
o'clock,
the
and then it's
same
been
time. Yeah,
it's now been standstill. Well, it
yeah.
is what it is. We keep moving. So
Cool.
great to see you. Thank you for joining us today. We shall be having our conversation on self-awareness, which we said is the first step to self-development. Because really, what is self? Before we talk so much, before we get into the groove, please just introduce yourself to our guests. Like, just
Okay.
tell us, who you are. They need to know how amazing you are and why they should be listening to you. So please, just give them a tip of the iceberg.
All right, my pleasure. So, hello and good evening. My name is Orichie Iyo. And I'm a lot of things, but what's most important to me is I call myself a people builder, right? A life architect, life strategist. So I'm a lawyer by background in terms of my profession, but I'm a strategist by everything else. And I kind of stumbled on that. It wasn't something that I knew, right? It's evolved, as I
Right.
grew in my career and in my life. And that's kind of part of the self-awareness conversation. It's not something I knew, right? So um, when I went through that process, I realized that this is something that a lot of people need as well. So I went
Mm-hmm.
and trained, all manners of certification just to convince myself that I could do it. And I started coaching. So I coach executive women, senior to mid-level, to kind of do what I did, figure yourself out, right?
Right.
And get out of your own way so that you can achieve the life you truly desire and dream of. Right? So
I
that's what
love
I
that.
do, within the purview of the Star Life Center.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So that's in a
I,
nutshell, really. And
I like the
I
name
love that. Yeah.
Star Life.
Yes,
I
yes,
never
yes.
thought about it. And as you were
Yeah.
speaking, it's just like, oh yeah, the Star Life. I love it.
Because the star of your life is you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's your
Absolutely.
job to figure yourself out and shine as bright as you can.
Absolutely.
That's what the star life is about.
I
Yeah.
love it. Amazing. Welcome. So welcome. Well done.
Thank
Well done.
you.
And today you're going to be giving us the tip of the iceberg of what you do with these amazing women that come to you at the Style Life Center. You're going to tell us how, how it all starts. What really is this self-awareness? Is it just a
Mm,
buzzword? You know how people just wake up one day and there's this buzzword that is going around? Or is it
mm,
something that we should pay attention to? And if so, where do
mm.
we start from? Just tell us.
Fantastic. So I'm going to apologize in advance. In my middle age, I've turned into a storyteller.
We love
So
it.
there's hardly anything that
We
I've
love
turned into a
stories.
storyteller. So let me tell you a story, and this is my story, right? So, as what let me not say was because I'm still a good girl, right? But I grew up as a quote unquote, tell me no secrets. Don't don't expose my secrets. We're good girls, right? So
We
I
are
grew
still
up
good girls.
as a
Yes.
good girl, and by good girl I mean someone that kind of does what they're supposed to do, right? So I tell people that if you wake my parents up on sleep any day, they will tell you, this is my daughter, we are proud of her. She did, obedience, just generally what society would call a good girl. And I
Right.
did everything in terms of the school, and my parents were very doctor, lawyer, engineer. Okay, choose the lawyer in the middle. Go to school, get good grades, come out, get married, have children, have boy, as in bang, bang. Get a job, do all of that. And at some point in I think my late 30s, it got to a point where I just looked and I was like, is this it?
I know.
What's remaining in this journey? Because everything that
I should
they
do.
said I should do, I've done
I've
it.
done.
So why am I not happy?
Mm.
Why am I feeling like I'm lost? Because I really felt that. And so I went through what I call a functional depression. So I was functioning, I was, high achieving, I was all of that. But when I would get home, I wasn't able to do anything. I would just sit in one place for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, and then I would go to bed every day. And it was a cycle, and I was doing that. So long story short, one day, and I remember it because it was New Year's Eve. So we had gone to church, we had done Happy New Year, we had done everything. And I go back home and I burst into tears. Like I was wailing. And my husband was looking at me and he was like, what's going on?
Sister.
And I couldn't even talk. I just said, I was just gesticulating, leave me. It's not about you, leave me, right? So I was wailing and I was having a conversation in my head. So I was talking to myself as I was wailing. So I was wailing, I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I can't continue like this. There's something and I don't know what it is. And then the other part of me was saying, it's you now. It's you now, performer. You will
As
find it now.
in,
Don't worry. Don't cry now. So this conversation was going on in my head. Don't worry. Don't worry now. Don't worry. So I literally like talked myself down in my head. So there was no words going, or there were no words going on the outside. But inside of me, I was like, okay. And what calmed me down was me assuring myself that I don't know what this thing is. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I'm going to find it. And when I gave myself that assurance, I quietened down and I cleaned my eyes and I got into the bed and I went to sleep. And my mom was looking at me this entire time. He was just watching me. Is this one having a mental breakdown?
going
What's
on.
happening here? And I would tell him, I just put his hand like this. Don't come near me. Don't talk to me.
Don't
Just leave me
interrupt.
alone. Don't interrupt. This is not about you. And
This
truly,
is a me
it was
moment.
not about them. It was a truly me and me moment. Something I couldn't do for myself. It was January 1, but I woke up with resolve. I'm looking for something. I don't, but I'm looking for it, right? And as they will say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right?
Absolutely.
And so when people ask me the same question, what's the first step towards self-awareness? Look around you. You have resources around you already. Who are the people that are your go-to? For me, my older brother is like my dad, and the people that just have answers to every question you can think of, right? So he was the person I asked. I told him I'm feeling somehow. I didn't even know how to explain. I'm feeling somehow, and I need. And he just said, "Well," he directed me. There's this. one of his classmates that does self-awareness things that I should try. So I went, I said, okay, that was okay. I went here until I finally found a coaching program that, that really spoke to me, and I stayed there for at least 5 years.
Okay.
Right. And at the end of the day, let me cut the story short. The long and short of it was that I realized what I was looking for was me. I was looking for myself. What had happened in that good girl process was that I had shaved off pieces of myself in order to fit in,
Fit
in
into
order
what
to,
people
in order, yeah,
expected.
exactly, to the societal. I'd done that. So parts of me were missing, and they were kind of crying out, "This is not you. Where are you?" Yeah, good. So that is my
I
story.
know. I
That
can
is my
totally
start of
relate.
self-awareness. Yeah. So that's the story I tell. So self-awareness to me is the journey back to you. It's the start of the journey back to you, and it's just the beginning of it. Yeah. Getting back into the cognizance of who you are. It's not something that we learn as we grow. They hardly teach in secondary school or primary school that you should understand what your strengths are, you should understand what your values are, you should understand what your temperament is, you should understand why you act the way you do. Right? It's basically saying, who am I in the scheme of things, in this wide world of 8 billion people? Who is Orifie? Yeah, so that's what getting back in touch with yourself, getting to know yourself. And that's a starting point. Yeah. Yes.
I love
I'll stop
it.
it.
I love it. I love it. I mean, the story I could completely relate, as in, like, I was just like, where did she get my story from? Because, I mean, and there will always come to that point where
Yeah.
you just know that there's something missing. And if you look around you, it looks like you have everything, right?
Yeah,
To the
exactly.
outside, that
Yeah.
they're like, what's
What
wrong with you? You
are you
have
looking
everything.
for?
What are you looking for? Nobody would
I,
ever get it.
I had someone tell me that once. It's because you don't have problems.
Do you
That's why,
understand?
yeah.
And that looks
That's
like you're,
why,
you're,
yeah.
you're
You're looking for problems.
ungrateful. Yes, that looks like you're ungrateful. It looks like, come on, what's wrong with you? You're not
Absolutely.
content. I mean, when
Yeah.
everything like this is going for you, what are you still complaining about?
What are you
And
looking for?
they
Yeah.
never get it. But guess what? I always
Yeah.
say to people that once there's a restlessness in your spirit,
Yeah.
it's a sign.
It's a
It's a
sign.
sign that you should do something. It's
It's
a
a sign
sign that something needs
that
to be
it's
done.
time for
Something needs
more. That's what it
It's a
means.
time for more. So
Yeah.
if anybody is on the call today and you are feeling a restlessness in your spirit, even though people think you have a fabulous job, you have a great family, you have
Mm-hmm.
great friends or whatever, everything else working for you, and it
Yeah.
looks like, what are you still looking for? Tell yourself today that you are in good company. That
Yeah.
is the start of the sign of, that's a sign that it's the start of your self-awareness journey. You should
Tell them.
totally
Tell them
follow it.
I'm looking for me.
You're
I'm
looking
looking for me.
for me. You're looking for
Looking for me.
yourself. You need to
Yeah.
find yourself. I mean, I love it. I love, love that. I mean, let's follow that path a little. You said,
Cool.
self-awareness is knowing who you are, what
Yeah.
makes you up, your values, your personality, and all of those things. Let's take
Mhm.
it one by one. Let's just take it little by little. I
Okay.
mean, somebody wakes up and says, okay, so okay, I want to find myself. Where do I start from? If you go
Good.
online, Google it and say, okay, how do I start my self-awareness journey? You will find all kinds of things.
Mm.
Send you to
All kinds of
personality
things.
tests, send you all kinds of things. And you're like, where do I even start? It may be too much.
Mm.
It may even start to blow your mind. So
Absolutely.
literally, as a
Absolutely.
coach, as in that's your field, that's
Mm.
what you do when you work with these women. Where do you typically start from? Please share with us.
Mm. Perfect. So I'm gonna, like I said, I've begged you to do it. I'm gonna tell a quick story.
Okay.
So when I actually started on this journey and I realized that, oh, okay, it's something that I can actually do for others. I didn't start coaching women. I actually started coaching children,
Oh,
interestingly,
okay.
or more like I started doing assessments for children for their parents. So the parents would understand each child and, learn how to
Work with
parent that
them,
child
parent them
appropriately based on
properly.
who they are. So it was called, it actually started out being called a STAM. And the only reason I started that is because I wasn't confident enough to approach adults. I just felt,
I
women would
know.
do anything for their children. So let me just
Yes.
take the
The easy
take the easy
way
way
out.
out. Take the low hanging fruit. Yeah. So I did that for a couple of years before I realized that this is not actually what I'm supposed to do. Right. But in doing that, and it actually started with one of my children, my own son. And I was like, this child he behaves differently from everyone else. Let me create a manual for him that I would just hand over to his wife. That's literally where it started. So I realized that it's not just your personality type that is a function of who, or informs who you are. And for the Star One practice, I used to call it the 5-star program, the 5 things that, if you have an understanding of, gives you a good idea of what's going on inside of you. Right. So for kids, it's slightly different from what it is for adults. But I'll say what they are. So the first one is your personality type. Right. Your personality type is a good informer of who you are. It basically means how you process the world. How you process the world, how you take decisions, whether you are introverted or extroverted, the kind of information you trust. Basically, how you interact with the world and process it. So that's what informs your personality type. Second thing is your love language. Yeah, your love language, because all of us, whether we realize it or not, we're looking for love. We're looking for acceptance. We're looking for validation. We're looking for that sense of belonging. That yes, I fit in here. So your love language is the key element of who you are. How do you receive love? How what is love to you? Yeah, what is it that a person will do that would turn you off completely, and what is it that endears others to you or will endear you to others? That's the second one. Then the third is your communication style. How do you interact with others? And like I said, your personality type, your interacting, how you interact with the world is your personality type, how your brain processes, how your mind processes. Then we have your communication style, which helps you build trust. And I'll give an example. So a choleric person communicates differently from a sanguine personality.
I
A
know.
choleric is direct, right? It's very direct.
It to me.
Yeah. Once you are beating around the bush, a choleric person is suspicious. They're like, this person is hiding something from me, right? The opposite is for a sanguine. A sanguine beats around the bush. They will tell the story round, right? And once you tell a sanguine to go direct, they afford their feelings or they don't trust you, right? So the essence of communication is actually trust in that relationship. So what is your own style? How are you interacting with the world? How are you giving and taking in terms of communication? Okay. So for adults, your strengths as well. What are your strengths? What competencies do you have that are different from everyone else? Yeah. And then lastly, I would say your values. Law would say what your values are like the ground norm of who you are. They are like the foundational basis of everything else that you do. What is it that you hold and believe as dear and true and the absolute most important thing? Right. So if you have a sense of those 5 things, to me, it's almost like somebody opened up your mind and shows it to you.
It's a complete
This is
manual.
who you are.
It's
Yeah.
a complete manual.
This
You
is who
just
you
know.
are. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it.
So, but that's not the end of that. So once you know these 5 things, then it puts you on a path, puts you on in a direction. So I give this example. It's like these 5 things are like your follow-come, as we say in Nigeria. They pretty much come along with you. We have a conversation. Is it nature or nurture? I don't know. It's just what it is now.
Right?
Sorry. Yeah. Right. So it's what it is now. It is what it is. Yeah. These 5 things. The question then is, what are they for?
Okay.
So
What
these
do you do
strengths
with
that
them?
you have, these competencies you have, these values you have, this style, what is it for? That then speaks to your purpose. By the time you draw a line between all of those things, right, and it's something I'm doing the coaching practice, draw a line through these things. You can see the commonalities, you can see the common thread, and that speaks to your purpose. This is what you're about.
Right.
This is, the idea or the concept that if you go into this fully, you'll find fulfillment, you'll find success, you'll find prosperity, you'll find all of that because that's what you are designed to do as a
Yes,
person.
because your
Yeah?
makeup is
It's
actually tied to what you're supposed to be doing. So
intrinsically designed to it.
absolutely.
Yes. And then the last point with that, on the back of your purpose, because what we then do, okay, so this is my purpose. Who is the person that does this? Whatever it is the purpose is. Yeah. Because I figured out what my purpose was is just what I'm saying now. It's to help people understand who they are. As simple as that sounds, it's so I have a coaching program that
it's
is 12
hard to
weeks
find.
trying to understand that. Yeah. So to help people understand who they are so they can get out of their own way, all the beliefs that they have, push them aside and actually focus on themselves. So what would you call a person that does that? So you get to name yourself. And that's what I call your identity. Coming into that space. When I show up in the world, this is what I show up as. right? So some people are beautifiers, some people are, customer service queens, some people are life strategists like myself. So wherever I go, any space I find myself in, this is what I'm doing at the core of it, right? The expression of it might be different, but at the core of it, this is the activity that I'm doing because this is the purpose that I'm serving, right? So that's
Love
the progression of it.
it. You're blowing my mind, Orife. You're blowing my mind, literally. Like I'm just like, oh my God. Like she's speaking. You see, I mean, just to quickly recap, you said that for all of us, if we want to find ourselves, basically self-awareness is to first start by drawing our map of these five main things, which is one, your personality type, and that is where you're extroverted, introverted, all of those type of personalities. Then number two is your love language. How do you love? How do you receive love, or how do you give love? Number three is your communication style. You need to know how you, because oh God, communication is like the biggest thing. People fight and struggle because they feel they're not heard, they're not communicating. Just understand yourself so you even know. It's, oh God, this thing you're saying is like a light bulb moment in my head, because I'm thinking, marriages could be solved. I mean, problems in marriages, problems in even parents, and problems even with, other relationships can be solved once people understand themselves. You right? So there's also this, the number four is the strengths, number five is your values, right? All of this are a makeup of you. And when you write this all of them down, you would see the line, the common line, which is basically going to speak to your purpose, because God has not put all these things together in you by mistake.
Exactly.
Right? They are pointing somewhere. They are pointing to what you're meant to be doing. So if you're not doing it, if not found it, then there's problem. So when you find the purpose, the next thing is now find your identity. And and I like how you said, you get to name yourself, you get to show up as something, and then and this is my identity, this is who I am. I recently started calling myself an encourager, because I got people say to me a lot that, oh my God, you're just always so encouraging and all of that. And I thought about it and I said, you know what? Yeah, I like it. I'm going to own that, right?
You go.
Because I'm always like rooting for everybody. Like, let's go. You can do it. You've got it. You've got this. And I feel like, yes, it's totally me. So I like that.
See, I think you're a builder. So builder
Okay.
of buildings, builder of, I don't want to say builder of encouragement, so builder of hearts,
Yes.
builder of dreams, builder of desires. So at the core of everything you're doing, you're putting structure and you're putting it,
I love
yeah,
it.
expressed in different ways.
I just
Yeah.
got a free session, guys. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
That's
love
it.
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're
So,
welcome.
today is amazing. My husband joined very briefly. I was going to say hi to him, but I can't find him anymore. I don't know if he's still on
You'll
the
come
call.
back, don't worry. Come
He must
back.
have been like, this is women's conversation. I'm out of here. But in case
You'll
you're
come
still
back.
there, we see you. We say hi. We love you. Thank you for joining. Okay. So, I mean, guys, if you're on the call and you have any questions, you can start to bring them in now, right? Because it's a very interesting session. I think we're really learning stuff right here, right now. So let's talk a little bit more about this personality type. You know, I read this book, Why You Act the Way You Do by Tim LaHaye,
Mm-hmm.
and there he's talking about temperament types. How do you differentiate temperament types from personality types? I mean, I know that if you just randomly Google personality types, you'll be seeing things like all those, judges, that thing. Look, I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. But what I'm comfortable with and what I'm used to is the temperament types. So how do they differ, or are they
Yeah.
all just different names for the same thing? What?
Mm.
Please tell us.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that what you said, I think they're all different names for the same thing. So
Okay.
temperaments, so there are different theories just to explain the differences in personality type. And perhaps what I would do is just speak to what informs personality types. What makes one person different from another? And there's four different things,
Yeah.
right? So the first is whether you are introverted or extroverted. Now, in late terms, we think if you're quiet, you're introverted. If you're, not so quiet, you're extroverted. Well, yes,
Yeah.
and to a large extent, yes. But the question is why? What makes one quiet and what makes the other one not so quiet? So two things. One is where you get your energy from. right? So energy in terms of, yeah. So an introverted person gets an energy from going inside of themselves. But it's like, I would liken it to charging your phone, right? So
Right.
what recharges an introvert is by going inside of themselves. So the two introverted types, melancholic and phlegmatic. Melancholic recharges by being alone, solitude, being by themselves is what gives them the energy.
Right.
Phlegmatic recharges by doing nothing, just doing nothing. Whether there's anybody there,
Let
there's
me
nobody there, they're
be.
just doing nothing. Let me be. Which is why they get called lazy a lot. It's just they perfected the art of doing nothing. And that is their own plug-in for energy, right? The extroverts, on the other hand, get energy from going outside of themselves. So a sanguine, on the one hand, is the people person. Where are people? Let's go and see this. Let's go and, yeah.
Yeah.
Where there are other people, sanguine draws energy from that. So the more people, the higher their level of energy. And a choleric draws energy from activity, doing things, getting things done. So they are the tick, 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 tick checklist people, workaholics. Yes. So that's where they get their energy from. That's what, one of the ways. Yes. So the second thing that determines if someone is an introvert or extrovert is when you have a problem or a situation to solve, where do you go? Do you go inside of yourself or do you go outwards? Turn it over and turn it over and turn it over and just think, which is kind of why they do well with solitude, right? Phlegmatic will just chill. I'm not even sure what they do, but
Like
if they are doing nothing,
life will
they
figure
kind
it
of figure
out.
it out.
Life will
What's
figure
the
it out.
easiest way to get this done? That's what they do, right? But they do
Right.
it, they don't go to anyone else to do that. A sanguine, on the other hand, has a problem. He's going to look for people and be asking people, what do you think about this? What, how do you think I can resolve this? That's, yeah. Then a choleric would try something out. Let's try this out. If it doesn't work, I try something else. If it doesn't work, I try something else. So those two things are what determine whether a person is introverted or extroverted. Where you get your energy from and where you put your attention. So you can actually be a mix of both. You can get your energy internally and this one externally. So you are in what we sometimes call the ambiverts. Right. So that is one thing that determines, are you introverted or extroverted? Second thing is, are you thinking or feeling? And that speaks to how do you come to decisions now? Yes, how do you process information? Right? How do you process information? What kind of information do you trust? What will you take as this is right or this is wrong? So you're either thinking or feeling in that regard. A thinking person will say, very logical in terms of how was this in the past? What does the rule say? So very logical, very little concern or very little regard for how does this impact people? How does anyone feel about it? So when they need to make a decision, they're like, okay, how was it done in the past? What are the rules? What does the rule say? We're going to do it, right? So that's a thinking person, or what someone used to make decisions with their head. A feeling person is one that will consider how do we feel? How will this affect other people? Who will like it? Who will not like it? So they're more empathetic and more concerned about the feelings of themselves and others, probably more of others. So you're either thinking or feeling. Then you're either sensing or intuitive. I think this is the one that the kind of information you trust, either sensing or intuitive. A sensing person trusts their five senses. So if you tell me I should believe something, you either saw it, or you heard it, or you tasted it, or you smelt it.
This network is networking.
Can you hear me
The
okay?
network
It's breaking.
I can hear you now. I can hear
Okay,
you
all
now.
right.
Initially,
Okay.
it froze for a bit. I don't know whether it's my network or yours, but it froze for a bit.
Okay. All right.
You were saying
Okay,
the
so I
last
was
thing I
saying
heard
that,
you say was that the sensing person.
yes. So they trust information that can be verified by the five senses. What in law would call a fact is verifiable. Right? Somebody saw it, or they heard it, or they smelt it, or they tasted it, or they touched it. It's verifiable. So this person that you say, oh, they say there's public holiday, they'll ask you who said so. Who said it? Is it
Yeah.
just something that you think, or you heard it from the Ministry of Interior? Even the one that you saw, is it the right person that said it? So they need facts. They're not going to take information from you if it's not verifiable, if it's cannot be verified by one of the five senses, right?
Okay.
An intuitive person, on the other hand, is trust their guts. They're the people that would say, I just feel. I don't have a rational reason or a logical reason, but I just know that this is the right thing. Now, with all these things, there's no one that is better than the other. They just are. Because we need both types of people. We need the thinking people, we need the feeling people, we need the sensing, we need the intuitive. All designers are intuitive because they bring something out of nothing.
Yeah.
I just feel like this is a good idea. Most creatives are like that. So the last parameter that determines what your personality type is, whether you are what we call judging or perceiving, or whether you are organized or spontaneous. Right? So an organized person is the person that has a plan. I have a plan. I have a backup plan for the plan. I have a backup plan for the backup plan. You can't catch me planless. They are the to-do list people. Everything is on a spreadsheet.
That's my
5-year plan, 20-year plan. Yeah, everything is. Yeah, you can't ask me anything. I have it written down. That's a judging organized. Yeah. The opposite of that is spontaneous. Let's see how it goes. What's your plan for 20 years? Let's see how it goes. Yeah. What are you doing tomorrow? As the spirit leads. When we get to that bridge, we'll cross it. So, yeah, it's how they choose to live their lives. So these four parameters, the interaction between them. So you could be INTJ, you could be ISHJ, you could be whatever it is that you fall on correlates to a temperament type. So that's why I feel it's the same thing they're describing, they're just using differently. So the Myers-Briggs would say INTJ, the DISC would say, DISC. So D for dominant, which is what would call the choleric, I for influencing, which is what we'll call the sanguine, S for supportive or steady, which is what we'd call the phlegmatic, and then C for cautious, which is what we'll call the melancholic. So I honestly feel that they're all the same thing.
Just doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So
just
instead of confusing yourself, just pick one and stick to it.
Pick anyone. Yeah.
Yes, because
you can't go wrong.
I picked the temperament, and I had completely understood this. I'd done the test for my family members. I just known what I was doing. So I was reading something the other day, and I saw this disc. No, not the disc. The whole George and Co. And I was like, all right, what are you guys talking about? So as you've explained it today, I kind of get it now. Yeah. I mean, it's actually quite clear, but in reading it, I couldn't make any sense of it. I just like, you know what, close it. I'm not doing this. But yeah.
There's one test that does that. It's a free one online. So anyone who hasn't done this, the 16 personalities test is actually using the Myers-Briggs, but it explains, what each personality type is. And I kind of like it because it shows the mix of temperaments that you are.
Yeah.
So a person can be melancholy, sanguine. It can be a mix of choleric and phlegmatic, right? But the Myers-Briggs helps you. If it's INTJ, it tells you what it is. So for my coaching practice, I have the mapping tool. If it's INTJ, this is what it means in.
Yeah.
This is what it means in temperament. If it's ESFJ, this is what it means. So whatever tool you work with, we can tell you what the temperament is. What that is. Yeah. So choose one, like you said. Choose whichever one you're comfortable with and work with it. You're not missing out on anything.
Right. Okay. Yep. Thank you for that. All right. Olufikayo has a question. She says, can one person be a cross between different classes in various life aspects?
Can you take that again? I'm not sure I have the question.
Yeah. She says, can one person be a cross between different classes in various life aspects?
Okay, so let me rephrase that. So are you asking if you can be different personality types or mixes in different areas of your life? Is that?
Yeah, I think that needs to be. Okay. Fikayo, please, you can clarify so that we can get you properly.
Okay.
Because are you asking if, are we going to, okay, she says yes, that's what she's asking.
Yes, okay, depending on, so I would say no. So your personality type is your personality type, right? How it presents in different environments would be true to that type, right? So for example, like I mentioned, if we're using the temperaments now, for example, say someone is melancholic and choleric, that's your mix. So it depends on the percentage of the mix. You understand? So if somebody is 70% melancholic and 30% choleric, it's different from a person who is 20% melancholic and 80% choleric, right? So it depends on what your mix is. And I'm not sure if we have any tool that can pinpoint the
exact
percentages to, the exact percentages, right? So you have a mix of different things, right? And I'll give you an example. So when I was growing up, I honestly thought I had multiple personality disorder because I would ask, honestly, because I was like, I'm so bold at the same time, so afraid at the same time. You know, I'm so outspoken at the same time, so cautious at the same time. So it's when I started learning that I understood that, okay, my personality types are melancholic and choleric, right? So depending on the situation, one of them comes out. Yeah, one of them comes out. I don't know why. It's again that nature and nurture question. I don't know why. In some areas, I'm like, no, we're gangster here. We're going there. We're going to do it. And in some areas, I'm very analytic and, in my head. So it's your unique mix, and we may never know the exact percentage of it, right? What I would say is study yourself. In what area do you behave like what, right? So if you're saying, okay, I find myself being choleric in certain areas, which areas are you choleric? And perhaps ask yourself why.
Why? Sometimes
for me, one
things are
example is,
triggered.
exactly. So for me, anything that smacks of bullying or injustice, I find that my inner gangster comes out.
I was going to say that. See,
Yeah.
so I was saying to myself that recently I'd been reflecting on why I acted the way I did in the beginning part of my marriage, and one of the things that came to me was that, I had seen some auntie, some relative, being oppressed in her marriage, and as soon as I came at marriage, I came with all my fangs, like before you say one, I'm like, no, you can't do that to me. Like it was almost, it was just instinctive. Like before you even, and it may have just been a harmless, statement, but I would just, react so harshly, like, no, it's not me. But normally I'm happy, good lucky,
push me down.
and everything. But it was just like my fangs just come out. No, it's not me. I cannot be oppressed. And so I was like, auntie, what happened? Nobody is fighting you, you see. But I now had to realize that it was tied to that. That was a trigger for me, and so I had to deal with it, so that I could actually not bleed on the person that didn't cut me. So yes, so finding out these things, finding out why you do that is really important.
Yeah. Let me even expand on that a bit in terms of behavior, because it's not just your temperament that informs your behavior. This is going into emotional intelligence a bit now. So let's backtrack a bit. Our behavior, is a function of our emotions, how we feel, right? And our feelings are a function of our thoughts, what we're thinking. Yeah. So that's the thought space. Now, what informs our thoughts are three things. One is a personality type. So a person that's phlegmatic will be gentler by nature, right? The person that's choleric will be more of a fighter naturally. Everybody that has temperament will have that. So that's one. Second is your experiences. So your experiences that you have. So like you said, the auntie had this problem, like never happened to me. This one, men has gone. These things that you have seen, that you have internalized, they now become your filters through which we see the world. The third thing is your sense of self-image. How do you see yourself? Because the same thing can happen to somebody. If they have a good self-esteem, they will shrug it off and move on. Someone who doesn't have a good self-esteem can dwell on that and really, become a shadow of themselves, right? So the actual behavior, your personality type, your experiences, especially from childhood, and then your self-image, those three things inform, how you see
How
the
you
world, they
react.
inform your thoughts. Yes. So you find that that's why people know how you are going to behave, because you behave the same way. Every time this thing happens, you behave like this. Every time this other situation happens, you behave like that. Yeah. So it then becomes predictable because you have that filter through which you see the world. Yeah. So that's where behaviors come from. So a personality type is only one of the features or constituent parts of what informs our behavior. Okay.
Yes. I'm good. Of course. Okay. So
Multitasking.
our traffic has refused to move, but we move. You can enter. All right. So thank you.
So,
I
well
really
done.
like what you said about, what forms how, how we react and everything. And I found this out in my journey while reflecting and, taking all of this coaching. And I really realized, a lot of things came from my nurture, what I had
Mm,
seen growing up, all the environment and even the way I'd been spoken to and things that had been said to me.
mm,
So I did realize that all of this added, they all just added together.
mm,
So how then do people come back? Okay, so Fikayo was explaining when
mm.
you were asking Fikayo that, where are the times when you find yourself as a choleric? She answered that at work when I'm dealing with decision making or on the home front,
Okay.
you know. So sometimes, I mean, so for example, another part of things that while growing up, maybe my mother was a very, strong personality. My father was more laid back. I got married and I started to think that I'm supposed to be a strong personality. And then I'm married a man that is a strong personality and
Mm.
it's like, yes, my own mother was quiet. You are supposed to be quiet. So I'm like, what's going on, bro? I'm not your mom, but he's not telling me that I'm not your dad. So you see, all of these things just come forward and you have to now, understand yourself and get to the point where you're like, okay,
Absolutely.
it's not fight. We're
Absolutely.
not fighting.
Mm,
Let's know where we are. So it's really important for people to step back,
mm,
step back,
mm.
identify themselves, identify what's going on with them, and just see what life, see why you are, and that's why I like the title of that book, Why You Act the Way You Do.
Mm.
Calm down. Yeah, why you act the way you do? Why? And it's something to ask yourself. Why am I like this? Why do I respond like this?
Yeah.
Why do I react like this? Why do I? It's very important to
Mm.
sit down and have that reflection. Which is why I was very happy at this topic when you suggested it, like, yeah, let's go for it, because many people have to understand
Ah,
that part of what is limiting them,
yeah.
part of what is limiting them from doing what they need to be, part of what's limiting them from showing up the way they should, part of what's
Yeah.
limiting them from being, the
Mm.
stars, like you say, is go follow them. Part of it is just that they just don't know, right? They don't know
Yeah.
why they are like this. So knowing is the first step. Knowing is everything.
Mm.
So how do we know? You've given
So,
us questions to start with, but knowing is everything. Tell
so
me.
I would even say take it forward from it. Understanding is everything. Because you
Yes,
can know
yes.
and
The knowledge
understand.
I
Yeah.
yes, yes, absolutely,
Understanding
absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if I know
Mm-hmm.
that I'm a choleric, but I don't understand what that means and why that
And how it
matters, it
affects
doesn't,
me. Yes.
exactly, it doesn't help. Yeah. So in terms of understanding, I say what I talk about that I deal in understanding. My product is understanding. That's all I say. Understanding. You have to
Absolutely.
understand yourself. Yeah. You
Mm-hmm.
start from yourself. You understand yourself, then you understand those around you, and then you
Mm-hmm.
see the interactions and what that means. And like I've been told, and my coaches have always say, for the person who has a higher level of awareness and understanding, the responsibility is on you.
Yes.
So you can't be saying the person doesn't know. You that knows, the
How,
responsibility is upon you
how are you
to use
helping them?
your knowledge effectively
Yes.
with applying with wisdom in the
Absolutely.
circumstance. Right?
Absolutely.
Something I'll
Not
probably even
understand
add,
it.
sorry. So
Go
one
on.
thing that I like to mention, and I know that it's because I've coached people, I see there's an issue in relationships, is understanding that there's some temperaments that naturally clash. And this is
Mm.
whether you are parents or whether it's spouse or whether it's in-laws, there's some
Mm.
parents, even yourself and your own, as an adult and your own parents,
Yes.
you'll find that there's some people that just naturally gel. You'll now say, this one is mommy's spirit, this one is daddy's spirit. Sometimes it's just a function of the fact that their personality types just get along
They just get
naturally
along.
without even trying, right? So I'll
Mm.
just say what they are. So the sanguine temperament, they get along with melancholic. Very interesting, right?
Mm.
And that is because sanguines are outgoing, they're, out there, sometimes loud, sometimes,
Yeah.
disorganized, right? But the melancholics are very cautious, very quiet, right? And they are the opposite. They are the ones that are more likely to go into a depression because they're thinkers
They
and
are
they can
internal.
become overthinkers.
Very
So
everything is internalized.
exactly. They don't want everything is externalized. So they balance each other out, right?
Mm.
So the sanguine, slows down a bit where they have a melancholic person. The melancholic comes out of themselves a bit where you have the sanguine person. So if you do this to people, you see them as best friends. You see them as spouses. In fact, the best friend works more than spouses because in spouses you get along until you get married and then you're trying to
Not
change each other. So the
trying to
opposites
change each other.
attracting.
I
It only
know.
attracts until you marry.
I know. I know.
Anyway, so
That
that's
is
the first group. Yeah.
okay. So
Someone
go.
doesn't get along with the others. Someone doesn't get along with choleric because they're both extroverts and they both like to be center of attention. So you
Yes.
find that there's a lot of clashing going on. There's a lot of, so you said strong personalities. That's why I mentioned that. So if you find two spouses and each one of them has either of sanguine or choleric, they're both going to be strong personalities. And they're going to clash.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I
just
know.
job
We
prepared.
clashed. We clashed so many times. It was something.
Same
Like
same thing
I had
in my house.
I had to tell
Same
myself that
thing.
okay, babe, calm down, calm down. What's going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, who else gets
And I
along?
learned it. I learned it late in the day. I should have gone to look for a
So,
melancholic husband.
no, so here's the thing. Like I said, the opposites attracts because you're unintentionally looking out for what you don't have. That's what psychologists tell us. Intrinsically, even if we're not, aware of it in our conscious state, subconsciously we know who we are and we know what we don't have. So we're looking out for that without realizing it. That's why we usually find the opposites. Yeah. So
Right.
literally
Right.
opposites do attract. They just, what then happens when you get married, everybody say, why you don't like me? Why you don't like me? My own is better than you. Why you like this? Meanwhile, that's actually what
What
attracted
attracted
us to each other
you?
to start with because you knew that you don't have it. Yeah.
Right.
Right. So finishing on that, let me just finish the other part
Yeah.
on the temperament. So someone and melancholy get along. Choleric and phlegmatic get along. Why?
Okay.
Cholerics like to lead. They want to be in front. They want to be in charge. Naturally, they just want to be in front. Phlegmatics, they don't have energy for
They
anything.
couldn't be bothered.
They can't
Yes.
be bothered, so they like to follow. So they don't mind. The other people will argue with you. Don't tell me what to do. Phlegmatic doesn't mind. I say, okay, why am I stressing myself? Right, so they get
Yeah.
along famously.
I
So
love that.
most times
I
when
never
I when
even
I
thought
see
about that.
couples, yeah, they get along really well because of that. But they don't get along with the others. So sometimes a parent that if there's a particular child or children that you kind of struggle with, I just check yourself. Is it that our temperament are opposite? Sometimes even having the same temperament, you're going to have
You
problems.
have problems. Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
so
Because it's
just
clash.
start that by checking. So that's just a relationship 101.
Ah,
What's going
that's
on?
a very important,
Yeah.
important information.
So yes, so
Thank you.
I'll stop there. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And I get what you're saying. I mean, another thing I wanted to point out was in my study of, personalities, I want people to understand that we need to mention that it's not a death sentence. So, for example, you
Yeah.
say, oh, you now read somewhere that sanguines are forgetful,
Mm,
they're flighty, they're not organized, and you now tell yourself, hey, that's the story of my life. I'm not
mm,
organized, I'm
mm,
flighty, I'm forgetful. That's how I was born. So
mm.
take me as you see. We need to point out that it should not be a blocker for self-development,
Yeah.
right? So it's a self-awareness to
Yeah.
understand what your weaknesses and your strengths are
Mm,
and work on them. Because
yeah.
there's something like there's a strength that comes with being sanguine. So even though we
Mm,
say you're flighty, you're forgetful, and everything, but there's a strength for it. There's the strength of
yes.
spontaneity. There's where that comes in. There's some people who would never be able to react to something very quickly because they're
Absolutely.
like, he didn't give me time. I can't process. I
Mm,
can't deal. I can't deal. But there's some other person that it's in their nature to respond quickly, right?
absolutely.
So it can be a strength. So why not? So the point about knowing is harnessing what is the advantage and then dealing with the
Yeah.
weaknesses. It's not to just sit in there and say, that's how I
Mm,
am.
mm, mm.
I can't help myself. I was born this way. No.
Yeah.
Right? I just need to point that out.
So two things I want to speak to that. So one is in terms of the responsibility you have in terms of evolving.
Yeah.
And then the second part of it is the strength. So I'll speak to the two of them. So starting with the strength. Each personality type has their strengths and weaknesses. There's no one that is better than the other. So there's this lady
They're
I
just
follow on
different.
LinkedIn that talks about how to be a leader as an introvert. So, usually in the workplace, you find that it's more of the extroverted tendencies that are, celebrated and, but that's not what you are. It's very draining. So she's like, you should actually be able to succeed by being
As who
yourself.
you are.
So she has tools and tips and tricks on how do I lead as an introvert, right? So there's no one that's better than the other. Like you said, we need all. So I have a brother that is a sanguine. And I tell people that if you need to know anybody in this world, in fact, I'm sure
He
if
knows
I
one
ask
person that
him, he
knows the
knows
next person.
people.
In 2 plugs, he has found everybody.
I said,
That's my
I
guy.
tell people that this my brother, he knows somebody in outer space. I just haven't asked him yet. I just need to challenge him. Right? There's nobody, he doesn't even need to know them personally, but he knows someone. He's like,
Somebody that
I
knows
know a guy.
somebody.
Yeah, I know a guy. And that intrigues me to my highest extent because me, I don't know anybody. Right? So
Your
there's
brother
strength
is
in
my
it,
guy,
like
I
you
beg.
said. He's my guy, oh, in fact. I don't even play with that. Because I don't need to know everybody because he knows everybody.
All you need is
Anywhere
one
in this
person that knows
world,
everybody, and
all I
you're
need
good.
is, yeah, you know? So there's strength. Yes, he's very forgetful. That's, I know a guy, you have to call him 10 times to remind him, but he will get it for you. Yeah. So that's it,
Oh,
that there's no one that is better than the other. So we balance each other out with our strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's how God created it.
I think
No
so.
one
It's
person is perfect on their
intentional.
own. We need others, exactly. We need others to merge and to be productive and to do all the things that we need to do. We can't do them all. So that's the first
Right.
part in terms of the strength. So it's not bad that you are this. It is what it is, right? The second part of it is this is who I am. Just accept me like that, right? That's where responsibility comes in. That's where responsibility comes in. It's not a cop out or a tool to evade responsibility. No. Like I said earlier, the person that has the higher awareness has more responsibility.
Yeah.
So if you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, it's your job, right?
To do
To do all you
something
can
about
to
it.
ensure that you maximize your strengths. And true of the matter is that because I'm a strengths coach as well, the more you maximize your strengths, the more you're able to manage your weaknesses.
True.
Okay,
True.
yes. Yeah, so instead of focusing so much on our weaknesses, how about we augment our strengths? What is it that I can do well? And how can I use the strengths that I have to make do for the areas of weakness? So if I'm a forgetful person, but I know everybody in the world, how can I get somebody that will be reminding me? Instead of trying to be the most, instead of trying to be
To
because
remember
the energy
everything.
I will use to try and remember everything, it will finish all my energy. But I know people that can do this. Yeah. So this person I know is a remembering somebody. Call them and give them that work.
I love it.
I know everybody. So how do you use your strengths to, mitigate your weaknesses? Because
Right.
the example I use, if you have a strength and a weakness. So for example, you are 80% good at something, so it's a strength, and then you are 10% at something else. Now, if you put 20% more effort, you'll be 100% in your strength. But if you put 20% more effort, you'll be 30% at your weakness. So it's not a good use of time and
Of
energy to focus too
of
much on
your
your weaknesses.
20%.
Yeah. Because you will even pass, you've not reached half mark. So focus the energy you have in the areas of it. But you need to be intentional about it. How am I using this to mitigate the areas that are not so good? Right. So personally, one example is I'm not a people person per se. I'm really not. But I'm good with one-on-one relationships. I'm good with
Yeah.
that. So I use that. If I need to influence a large group of people, I find somebody that is a people person and I engage with that person. So that then becomes my funnel to the larger group.
To
So I don't have to
the
stress
larger
myself
group.
with being the life of the party
To
because
be
the
connecting
energy
to
it will
1
take
million
from me.
people.
Yeah, the energy will be too. I can't deal. I will just go to my husband. It will be too much for me. But I can do this one. I use that to get get the result
and
that
and
I
and,
want to get.
and
Yeah.
that's very insightful, actually. That's very insightful. And I
Yeah.
think that we can look through all of our strengths and weaknesses with this lens to say, okay, so what is this thing that I can use to mitigate that
Exactly.
weakness so as to be able to
Yeah.
achieve my goals? Because at the end of the day, I have work to do.
I
I
have
have
a
to
life
deliver
to
on the
be.
purpose. I must deliver on the purpose, because the bad God is not going to
Just,
hear that. So it's
just be
because I don't
going.
forget.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't do it. He doesn't want to
And he
know.
made you, and remember that he made you that way. So your forgetfulness is not a
It
surprise
was
to
it
him.
was part of the package, so it's not an
He's part of
excuse.
the package. So he's looking at you like, what's your point being? What's your point?
What is your point exactly? Have you done the work? Where is the work?
Yeah.
Just
The other
all
food
we
that
want
are
is
more
the steps.
forgetful than you that are believer. What's your excuse? So it's not
That's
our personalities, shouldn't be an
They are
excuse
not an
to
excuse.
to avoid
I
doing the
mean,
work. It's rather
ladies,
a call to responsibility.
if you don't get anything else from this call today, get the fact that your personality type is not an
Yeah.
excuse. It's not an excuse. Don't sit in it and say, "Oh, this is how I was
Mm.
created. This is how I was
Mm.
born." No. Instead, you're going to be saying to yourself, "Okay, great. So now I know this. This is how I'm going to use the strengths to mitigate the
Okay.
weaknesses, and soar, and just be the star, be that superstar that I was created to be." Because that's what it's all
But the
about.
star
Oh
of
my
your
goodness,
life
it's
is
been
you.
such an amazing conversation today. I'm sure we can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. But I'm mindful of time. We're almost on the dot of the hour. So I wanted to ask if anybody has any more
Yeah.
questions so that we can
So it's
get
my
through the questions.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
before
it's my husband's
before
birthday today, so I'm looking at time so I can go home and go and do
please
wifey.
go and do the wife work. Oh, who are we to hold you? Please tell him we're sorry, sir. We did not know
No,
when we're fixing this.
no, just say
We
happy
are
birthday. Just wish him happy birthday. Happy birthday, sir.
happy birthday. Happy birthday, Mr. Uyo. Happy birthday to you, sir. We love you. We love you. We love you. Thank you for sparing your wife for us for an hour. She's going to be with you in a few minutes.
And I'm
Oh my God, it's been such an amazing conversation today. I really, really learned a lot, and I'm sure that our guests and our attendees, even those that are going to be catching the replay later, will learn a lot. I mean, Orifie has this coaching practice. She spoke about it already, the Star Life Center, and she has a number of books, a number of courses that you can take advantage of if you want to learn more and go deeper to understand yourself, so that you can just get out of your own way and be the star
yeah.
that you were created to be. You can hook up with her on I think it's Star Life Center. Is it the Star Life Center or
Yes, the Star Life Center.
the
The
Star
Star
Life
Life
Center?
Center.
The
Yes,
Star
one
Life
word.
Center, that's her handle. So you can hook up with her there, send her DM to partake in her courses or books or whatever it is that she's doing. Thank you so much, Orife. You've been an amazing,
Sure.
amazing guest today. We've taught us plenty of things. And you've
Yes,
even given
so
me an identity. Asking me now. I even have it. I have a new title, so I'm excited. So thank
cool.
you so much
Well
for
done,
coming on
Noah.
the show today.
Great
And
going.
yes, and this our program is called Women's Matters. It's brought to you by the Women's Growth Academy, which is a community of women who just love God and want to, work together in themselves, getting to know themselves better and getting to know God better, and just growing in whom God has called them to be. So we meet here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. WAT, where we have different conversations, different topics about things that just move us forward. And we have amazing guests like Orifia today. Oh my, now, me, I'm your brother's person. I know one person, I know one person, I know one person. So I mean, my contacts have not finished. We'll be,
Thank
we'll be
God.
having this
So
back-to-back
I've added you now.
conversation.
I've
I
added you to
mean,
my people and people. Thank God. Thank
so
God. Now God.
I'm really very grateful that I'm able to use this my plenty friends finally for something good. Yeah. So you guys, well done.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.
And thanks for
Thank
having us. Thanks for having me. I had an
you so much.
absolutely still time. Thank you so very much.
So if you have one final word for our guests, one word,
Yeah.
one sentence, maybe not one word,
Okay.
one part in
So
sentence.
maybe one paragraph. Okay. So the one thing I tell people I like to say is that you're not random, right? You're not. It's not a coincidence that you are alive in this time and season, or even in this country, right? It's because there's something in you that the world needs, right? And the only way to discover that thing is to literally start on the self-awareness journey. You need to kind of clear away the debris in your mind and heart to get to the root of who you are, right? And in not doing that, you are robbing the rest of us from the awesomeness that you carry. Because God has put something in you for the rest of us. So don't be stingy with your
Selfish.
awesomeness.
Don't. Do not be selfish. Share your
Yeah?
awesomeness with the
Share your
world.
awesomeness, share your greatness. And greatness really, how I define greatness, so I did recently is, you know, serving God and serving others from a place of understanding yourself. That's what makes us great. And there's a star in each of us whose job is to shine. So you know, don't in any way
Don't hide your lamp under the
dull that
bushel.
shine. Yes, don't pretend. Don't hide in the shadows. Don't do that. Right? Yes, there's something something in you for all of us. So please and please, that's my biggest message to everyone. Your job is to find yourself and give yourself away. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was so profound and a very good spot to end our conversation today. Ladies, gentlemen, find yourself and don't rob the world of the awesomeness that you carry. Thank you so much, Orifia. Thank you, everyone, for joining the call today. If you're catching the replay, thank you for watching. We will see you same time next week, Tuesday, when we have another conversation that's going to uplift you. God bless you. Good night.
Yeah.